Oh, okay, there we go. The recording has started.
Okay.
Okay, so I think the first thing, whenever we do these recordings, is you always ask for an introduction, so you can make it as short and sweet or as long as you desire. So totally up to you.
I don't know what to say. Yes, my name's Yildiz Sethi. I have many different roles in life. I'm particularly interested in personal development, and I'm a therapist and I'm a creator of therapy. I've got two modalities that I've created. And I do lots of training. So I offer lots of training and have a private practice. And prior to that, I was a physics and chemistry teacher for many years. And then I became a Vedic astrologer for many years. So I've had many different roles in my life, I suppose. I feel like I've had at least 4 lives in one life. Yeah.
So you've got at least one book. How many books do you have?
3.
Only 3. Ah, you're slow.
Yeah. I've got 3
Wow.
in my head whenever I get the time to do them. But yeah, I do. I've only got 3 out at the moment, which is good. I'm happy to have 3 out, so that's good. Yeah. It
So
takes a huge amount of time to write a book.
what's the general focus as quickly as you can? What's the, in the short, what's the general focus of each one?
The first book was Stardust on the Spiritual Path, which was a book about how we are. This is just my belief system, how we're born into life and how we go into a cycle of reincarnation and come back each time and have different experiences each time, all part of our spiritual path as we go towards enlightenment, awakening, whatever you want to call it. So it was a book about that, and it's about a character which I've called Soraya, who gets born each time into a different body and to a different time and place, and has all these different things to experience and get through. And it just really showed how karma is created and how it's lived, and all of that. It also talks about personal development, family constellations, which is what I do, and a little bit about Vedic astrology as well in that. So it's kind of a spiritual book, but it's a personal development book. It's a book about growth and inspiration and how to take control of your life, really. That's what it's mostly about. Yeah.
It's fiction.
It's semi-fiction. There's a lot of real stories in there. Yeah.
Okay, so it's a fictionalized version of a lot of truth.
Yes, that's right. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
And your second book?
Second book is called Be Rich and Spiritual. And that came out of that first book, which is how to, create your own reality. How to get rid of the blocks in your head and the blocks in your psyche, so that you can actually create and achieve your goals, really. And there's a lot of exercises you can do in that book along that way. And that's been a really, it's a lighter read, but it's a book about how to create your own reality. If you are thinking negative thoughts all the time, or you're programmed that way, it's kind of, that's all you see in front of you, and that's all you gravitate towards, and you kind of end up attracting those kind of situations. So if you can clean that up, and focus differently, you'll actually create a whole new lots of neural pathways, and you will create a very different lifestyle. So all that.
So is your second book more about analysis within your head, or is it about how do you, in general, without getting too deep, do you focus your awareness on your thoughts? And I mean, what What modalities would you
It's,
say
it's,
it
it's actually
uses?
it's actually an inspirational, uplifting book, right? It's a book that reminds people that we're all, abundance is everywhere. We've just got to get rid of our own blocks, and it's there. That's really what it's about, in a nutshell. And I suppose, anything you can do that helps you to get rid of those blocks, be it hypnotherapy, be it psychotherapy, be it positive thinking or visualization, can help in that. And and I see all those therapies as a way of helping us clear our muddy water, so that we can be a lot clearer about what we want and what we deserve as well. Yeah.
In your third book?
Third book is Rapid Core Healing, which is a book on psychotherapy, and that's a much more therapy orientated book, which talks about, well, I've invented 2 psychotherapies, so I present those in that book with all the research and all the cases and all the theories, philosophies around it. So it's a much more, what would you say? It's more for practitioners, I suppose. People who want to, yeah, find a better way of working with their clients. Yeah.
So, what mo- you've created 2 new therapies. Do you want to get into them, or do you want to see? I have a number of different areas that I'm interested in, and I don't necessarily want to pull you away from what you want to say, but at the same time, I'd also like to cover these other things as well, and they may fall into play. But I guess, do you have your own? How do I put this? A lot of people are therapists and they're researchers, but they're not experiencers. They're not. They don't have an experience with aliens. They don't have an experience with the paranormal. They haven't done shamanic journeys. They don't go into the astral plane. They don't do uh, any of those things or have any of those experiences. They're just therapists. And I'm not saying I'm not saying this to minimize anything. I'm just saying, do you have your own, are you an experiencer? Do you have experience with aliens? If not, do you have experience with the paranormal or the afterlife or anything that might be interesting to the readers?
Look, I am primarily an experiencer.
You are. Yeah.
The kind of therapies I do are not rational, logical therapies,
Sure.
because most of our minds don't work that way. We work in dreams and images, and we go in and out of other realities all the time.
Sure.
And I work with that. I use something called family constellations, which goes into other realms, other lives, ancestral stuff, clearing energy. I do that. But I also work with past lives when they come up. But I'm not particularly. There was a point in my hypnotherapy where I kind of toyed with the idea of doing lots of past life stuff. And I decided not to do that in the end, because I realized that a lot of people who come for past life regression are really just kind of looking for an excuse about why they're doing what they're doing now. And so I think, no, I don't do that. But I have had lots of paranormal experiences. I'm highly sensitive. I do hear and see things and sense things very strongly. And I'm always going into other people's energies and their mother's energy and their father's energy, and helping people to sort out, their connections that way. Yeah.
So if you're an experiencer, do you mind if we go through your contact experiences? Is that okay with you? Or would you rather talk about something
I'm
else?
not sure. No, I'm happy to talk about this. That's not a problem. Tell me what kind of things you mean by that.
Well, to me, experiencer means alien contact. It has nothing to do with the paranormal. It's specifically, in my mind, at least, I'm not saying this is correct, but my understanding, when somebody calls themselves an experiencer, they're saying, I have alien contact. Now, that could mean they're a contactee, it could mean they're an abductee, it could mean any number of things. But in general, it means specifically they have alien contact. So if I've had personally infinitely more paranormal experiences than alien contact, but I've also had the alien contact too, just not near as much. So I'm not looking for volume, I'm just looking for whatever you got.
Okay, look, I'm not an alien experiencer. I am fully aware of myself as a soul and energy and everybody else's soul and the soul of my past lives or my other selves. I'm really aware of all of that. I get lots of flashbacks about past lives. I get lots of messages that come from nowhere, which seems to have some validity.
That's fine. So let's go with that.
I don't do alien stuff, and mainly because I've decided I'm not opening myself up to that. I think I could do that, but I actually decided at some point that I didn't want to go down that path. I've had people come to me who say they are feeling that they've been invaded by something, and I help them get out of that or help that to go away. That's
right.
A common occurrence.
So
but I don't particularly look for it, but it happens when it happens, you know.
So you have alien contact through your clients?
Yes, I have had. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I had an interview last night, or the night before last, and one of the things she mentioned was, and she is a therapist also, she mentioned that she was doing some regression work on a person, and they had ET contact, and the ET actually showed up during the session, and she saw it just like she would see you or me. And so we didn't go too deep into it, but she did go through that experience. So if you want to mention any experiences you've had with your clients relating to ETs, we can go to that. If you would rather not do that, we can visit your paranormal experiences. Whatever you would find fascinating that you think the listeners would also find fascinating, whether it's your first paranormal experience and then go through all those, or whether you want to focus on what you've done with your clients that is either ET related or paranormal related, or even what you do when you go, you talked about going on to the other side, other realms. If you'd rather talk about that, it doesn't matter to me. It's all good as long as it's interesting, fascinating, and you think the listeners will enjoy hearing about it, and you think it will inform people. I'm good. I'm good for it. Whatever direction you want to go, it's good for me.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure. I've had so many stories. You know, people who say they're haunted. You know, and you know, there was a point when I was going to start calling myself a ghostbuster because I had so many people coming to me who said they had, you know, a ghost or an entity, or you know, whether you call it alien or not. I've never called it alien, but something that's invaded them. And yes, just letting it go. And I find even when I'm doing a regression or doing a constellation, that when you actually contact something like that and hear what it has to say and not just get rid of it without doing that, there's usually a good message there that's helpful for the person. Do you understand what I mean? It's not usually for no reason. The other thing I've found that people who are very fearful, full of anxiety and fear about the world, will often seem to be constantly attracting all these entities, and you know that and they're actually living in panic and fear all the time. So you know what I do with that is actually work with that and just send them out to the light. So you know, I've had lots of experiences in my own life where I was doing a constellation, we call it constellation, with a man who came to me saying that he was really sorry that he divorced his wife 3 years earlier, missed her so much. And, you know, I said, well, what do you want to do about it? He said, look, I need to let it go. So we did a constellation, which I call a spiritual divorce, in a hypnosis trance. And just as we were right in the middle of that, just letting go, there's a whole process. It's an actual, you know, a process that you go through. And I heard my phone ringing in the other room. And after the session, I picked up the phone and this woman said, look, my name is whatever. It was a really unusual name. And this fellow's wife was that name. And she said, look, I got a divorce 3 years ago and I really wish I hadn't, because, you know, I really, you know, don't think it was the right thing to do. And she said, do you mind if I come and see you? And I thought, wow, how does this happen? Now I live in a big city and she could have phoned 1,000 people probably, but she phoned me at the very moment when I was doing that process with him, right? So in the end, I spoke to him about it and I said, do you mind if I see this woman? And yes, it turned out to be his wife. And they got back together, you know, they came to one of my workshops and they got back together. So that kind of thing happens all the time, you know. People get better all the time by contacting sometimes a past life or a relation going back from, you know, the Middle Ages or 2 generations ago or whatever, and somehow something happens and they get better. So I don't really know how to explain what happens, but things happen all the time, you know?
Sure. Yeah, probably the quickest session I ever had in my whole life. I worked with a lady who wanted to break. She wanted to release the it was some kind of emotional bond she still had with her ex, and she wanted to let go of that. And we did it including the induction and the session and bringing her out, the whole thing from start to finish was 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And usually it'll take me that long just to get somebody into trance, and alone,
Okay.
you know, the session, the induction session, all that, you know, it's usually 1, 2 hour, 3 hour sessions and 20 minutes to get them in. Well, she was done start to finish in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's the easiest session I ever had. But in any case, I know it worked because she mailed me a check. So anyway,
I guess
we can
another
go.
one, I
Go
guess
ahead.
another one that was a bit scary for me was, which is nothing to do with therapy. Before I became a therapist, we were living in a house a house we'd just moved to, actually. And this house was such a sad house. You know, we moved in, we got it cheap. In fact, what happened was we were looking in this town, we saw this auction, we went along, and all of a sudden my husband's putting his hands up and he's bought the house without even a discussion or anything, you know. It was like crazy, stupid. Anyway, we moved into the house. It was on 40 acres, but it was such a sad house, and we got it really cheap, right? That's the important thing to know. Now, within a year or two, say a year or so, I was feeling the energy of this house, super sad. And the walls kept moving and kept shaking as well. Pictures kept moving, and I kept seeing things move across the house and all sorts. And the garden was really beautiful, but really sad. Anyway, my husband was talking to one of the people in the town about a year after we moved in. No, nearly 2 years after we moved in, that's right. And he told them what we bought, and they said, "Oh, wow, you bought that house. Okay." And then the story came out that the first owner bought that house and built that beautiful garden in memory of his son that died on a motorcycle. Okay. At the end of 2 years, he sold it to somebody else, and their son died in a road accident, right? And then we were the third owners, and we didn't have sons, so I was thinking, okay, perhaps we'll be okay. But at the end of 2 years, that was about the time we were about to sell this house, and my husband's sister's son died in a road accident at that moment that we sold the house, right? So it's like somehow there was a curse on this house. And then when we found out further about what had happened on this land, it was an Aboriginal settlement that had a lot of massacres, I suppose, on that particular land. And I think really it was cursed land and we shouldn't have been there, you know. But I was so glad to leave that house, but then also so sorry that my nephew died in a tragic accident. He was only 21 while we lived in that house because we didn't have sons, right? So it's like, God, you know, that was a bit scary actually, but yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching a TV show where this couple moved into a house in Taiwan because the husband got a very high paying or a very good paying executive position, or he had one, and his company sent him to do work in Taiwan. And the house, the design of the house, this was a very luxurious house, right? And the builder who designed the house designed it specifically to kill whoever bought it. It was made to order, where the electrical system was all set up. Everything was designed so that the energies that were drawn to that house would be bad. Yeah. So the person there would not survive. And they showed the daughter getting possessed and all these different things going on. But sometimes the house is cursed, sometimes the person is cursed, sometimes the land is cursed. You know, you got all these different types of things going on.
But the interesting thing is, at that time, I was a teacher, right? I was a science teacher. And I didn't know what I know now. That was more than, 25 years ago now, right? And it's like, I didn't know what I know now. If that had happened now, I'd know exactly what to do. I'd know exactly, you know, how to clear it. I'd know exactly how to nullify it, if you like. But I didn't know at that time. So it's like when you don't have that knowledge, it can be scary. You can understand why people get scared, you know?
So do you think that your knowledge now would allow you to totally remove a curse from a land?
Yes, I've done it many times, many times.
Oh, have you done? You've done that?
Many times. I had a lady come to me only last year with her son, who was having lots of anxiety and fear. They'd bought a house here in Brisbane. They wanted to move in, but every time they went there, it was a horrible energy. They just didn't work. Anyway, the son kept feeling that he was being speared. He kept waking up in the night feeling people are spearing him, and he would also have panic attacks in the day as well, right? And he was anxious all the time. He was only about 8, I think, at that time. It's last year. And she said, "Look, can you help me do something to help my son, primarily?" And she had a feeling it was something to do with this house that she'd inherited from her great-grandparents, right? So we did a constellation. This is what I use to do this, a family constellation, whereby we set up her son's energy, we set up the house, we set up the original owners of the house. And then when we stood on all those places, we could sense, she could and I could too, that there was something very bad. I said, look, who did this land belong to? She said, oh, it was Aboriginal land. Do you know what happened? Oh, yeah, there were massacres. Okay. So then we did a whole ceremony there about what can you say? Bowing to them, really, just saying how sorry we were and how it was the worst thing that could happen and blah, blah, blah. And we got them to speak back to us, right?
So you were apologizing.
Yeah, apologizing for the massacre of her parent, her lineage, if you like, that had happened on there, right? So you're standing in grandfather's energy when you do this, right? Or her energy, because she's directly linked to what happened. And messages came back once a dialogue had happened between them that, okay, it's okay now. And then she asked, is it okay for you to release my son right now, right? From this curse, jinx, whatever you want to call it. And she went away feeling really happy. She rang me a couple of days later, the next day, to say my son came home saying, really happy from school, saying, Mummy, it's gone. Whatever was, haunting him was gone. And they went to the house as a family, that house, because they were trying to sell it for several years and nobody would buy it because of this energy that it had in the house. So then they went into the house, and as soon as they drove up, they said it looked different, it felt different, and now they've actually moved in. And they're having a ball. It's a fabulous house now. They're really enjoying it. So that was, and this kind of thing happens all the time in the work I do. That's the kind of work. If you're interested in this, you should look up constellations, because I know they have constellations in USA as well. And if you look up in particular, what's her name? Francesca Mason Boring. She's a constellator in USA that does a lot of ancestral work, which is really about just clearing it for us today, whoever we are today, living with the baggage that we're still carrying from what happened before, and sometimes it gets in the way, and children feel it really strongly. And that happens all the time. I'm always being asked to help little Johnny, little Susan, and then when you look at what they're carrying, it's nothing to do with them. They're attached to something that happened in another realm, in another life within the family system. And if you help them just to release it, then they suddenly get better. I remember the first time my husband and I were introduced to constellation work. We have 2 daughters, and we were in India doing this training in India. And we did a constellation on our own families, because that's what you're meant to do. You're meant to clear your own energy as much as possible if you're going to be a practitioner or a trainer, so that you don't get triggered by other people's stuff so much. So my husband did a constellation, and he had a very difficult relationship with both of our daughters. And, we never understood why it was so difficult. But then my second daughter was very sick at that time. She was only 22, but her energy was so low. She'd been to all the doctors, naturopaths, herbalists. Nobody could help her. It was one of those things, they couldn't put a name on what was wrong with her. Anyway, in a constellation, they put up my daughter, they put up a husband, and then they put up his mother, who had been sick her whole life. She was still alive at that time, but she'd always had one illness after another. And it was shown that my daughter, was connected to her grandmother, even though in real life she doesn't actually like her grandmother. You know, she'd never had much of a allegiance at all, but unconsciously she had this deep connection, and she was carrying all this heavy load of sickness from the grandmother. Well, in the constellation, we were able to release her from the grandmother and put her in a safer place, you know, with us. And the grandmother was also turned to her ancestors where she got that all from. And so that was okay. But then my daughter rang up, and because he did a constellation on each daughter in that particular constellation. And then the other daughter was also tied to something in his family to do with his father. Anyway, we did the constellations, thought nothing much more of it for him. And then in India, we got emails from each daughter separately. And the elder daughter said, "What have you just been doing? Something's happened because I'm feeling differently. I've just been crying, but like happy tears, not you know, gratitude tears, you know, of she said, yeah, I've just been crying and thinking about you and thinking how much I love you and all this kind of stuff," which was not what she'd normally say. And I said, yeah, we just did a constellation and we released you from some of our ancestral energy. And she said, oh, thank you. You know, that's amazing. Then the other email came from the second daughter who'd been sick and said, I woke up in the middle of the night last night and I was tingling all over my body and just tingling. And I woke up this morning when I did finally wake up, and I'm so full of energy now. I've got so much vitality, and she's been healthy ever since, right? So these are the kinds of things I do all the time with clients. There was another constellation that we went to in Australia, my husband and I, where we looked at our family, and we're a very unusual family in a sense, and it showed his family and my family. And at that time, my husband was keep getting messages from his grandmother, and his grandmother kept sending him messages about simple stuff like, you need to do it was silly stuff. Yeah, you need to buy these shares. You know, it's crazy stuff. And his grandmother wouldn't have known anything about shares, but she kept getting messages all the time from this grandmother. And he had a fondness for this grandmother in his youth. So in the constellation that was put up, where there were all these people representing my family and his family, and we were watching, somebody came up to his representative and say, I am your grandmother. And then somebody else came up from another constellation and said, I'm your daughter. And all these different things just made a lot of sense. And all these messages came up. And again, our daughters contacted and said, what are you doing? You know, like, you're messing with my psyche again. What's happening? And again, there was another healing of some sort within the family, you know, another letting go of baggage, which opened the door to, you know, better connections, you know. So this kind of stuff is what I look for all the time. And when I said to you earlier, I could be open to aliens and I could be open to, you know, entities or all sorts of paranormal stuff, I kind of have chosen not to be. Because even though I'm fully open to all of this, I've chosen to work just in the light, or just in the name of love, or just in the name of connection, clearing away difficulties so people can connect in love, right? That's been my choice. And I am incredibly sensitive, incredibly psychic, but I've chosen that I'm not going to just let it just free fall and go and pick up any old thing anywhere, because I learned as a teenager that wasn't the best thing to do. Because when I was how old? 17, perhaps 18. I was in a seance, and somebody picked up my grandfather, and I'm Turkish, right? So my grandfather's name is a very unusual name, and I was with a group of English people in England who wouldn't have known how to spell this name in a million years, you know, because it's a difficult name. And he died before I was born too, right? So I never even got to know him. So it came out my name, Yildiz, right? Difficult name. And then it came out his name. And then I was mystified, and I said, well, who are you? And it came out again, grandfather, you know, father's father. But there was no message, right? There was no message. We just made a contact with him, and he said, I'm dead, you know, I died the year you were born, which is true, he did. When did you die? The year you were born, whatever the year that was. Now, we made a real contact. I don't doubt that at all. It's real, right? He really did come in. He really did connect with me for whatever reason. And so I went home that day really scared, actually, because there was no message other than there's a contact. And I went away feeling he was right on my back the whole time when I went home. And I shared it with people, and eventually I came to realize, I realize now what happened, that I'm an open psychic person and I pick up energies really easily, right? But I can choose whether I just become a dustbin for all the entities that want to come in or not, or whether I use that psychic energy to help people, right? To help people clear away stuff that they don't need to hold on to, clear away hooks that might be in them, clear away standings that might be there, and also, most of all, connect them to the love that's available for them in their life, you know, and usually with their family members. And so when I said at the beginning, I've made a conscious choice, I have, you know, that my choice is to help people connect with who they are and connect with their purpose, or wherever they are on their spiritual path, to do whatever they need to do. Another thing that happened to me when I was a Vedic astrologer too was, okay, two things. I believe in destiny, and I believe in karma, and I believe that things are not without a reason, right? That's my personal belief.
Sure.
And when I became, I was a school teacher for many years, and I loved teaching. I wasn't like some teachers who hate doing what they're doing and all that. I loved the kids and I loved teaching. And I actually loved teaching tough kids as well. Like wasn't looking for an easy ride.
Right.
But at the end of about a 15-year career, when I thought they were going to have to kick me out of the profession, we went on holiday and I met 2 Vedic astrologers in 1 week. Now, at that point, I didn't even know what Vedic astrology was, right? It's Jyotish. It's very popular in USA. And I didn't even know what it was. So I met these astrologers. They looked at my chart. They told me all sorts of things that they could not possibly have known about me, my father, my family, my life. And they also said, and I was also just come to the end of a period and just about to start a new period. And they said, wow, something big is just going to happen to you. And I didn't realize what was big was happening was right here and now in this reading. I met 2 of them in 1 week. Anyway, I was enthralled by this, absolutely fascinated. I couldn't believe how sucked in I was, right? So I went home with a course. I started reading and researching and learning how to do astrology. And then I got really sick, right? Because in my head was saying, you've got to become an astrologer, right? You've got to become an astrologer. This is so you've got to do it. And then I was fighting with myself saying, look, I'm a good teacher. I've taken a long time to get to this level. I don't want to give it up. You know, people will think I'm crazy. How can I do astrology in Australia? It's crazy, right? So in the end, after a year of this going on, I got really sick. My digestion stopped. I couldn't go to work. I got really sick. And then I realized at that time I was doing lots of meditation as well. I'd already started meditating regularly from about the age of a couple of years earlier, actually. And the in a meditation during that time when I was really sick, it came to me really strongly. I saw myself as a Vedic astrologer, an old man in India on my deathbed, making the wish that next time I will do astrology, and this time I will really help people, right? And so I knew I had to do astrology. It just had to be. And so within a week of that, I thought, okay, I'm just going to tell my husband, tell my family, tell my friends. I gave him my notice. I left school, right? And then started a whole 20-year study, if you like, of astrology, because it's such a deep, mystical, spiritual science. It's very different to Western astrology. It's really accurate. It really tells you who you are, what you're doing, what your purpose is, what your challenges are, what your gifts are, you know, what you're doing right now, etc., etc. And also your free will too. You have free will, of course. And so I got really involved in karmic cycles, which and I was doing lots of readings. I learnt to do this so quickly, it was unbelievable. I joined a group in Sydney, and the fellow that had the group said, yeah, it'll take you about 20 years before you can learn enough to do readings. I learnt it like that. It was straight away. I just knew it. It was so familiar to me. And he was amazed. He said, wow, how could this be? Anyway, I just started doing readings almost straight away within a year. And my readings were so accurate every single time. People ring me up with a date, time, place of birth, the name's John or Susan or whatever. I do their chart reading without knowing anything about them at all. They'd come and sit with me. I didn't want them to talk. I would do the whole reading, an hour, recorded. We'd switch off the recording. And then they said, wow, how did you know I was a doctor? How did you know I was a teacher? How did you know I was lost? How did you know this? All absolutely accurate, right? And so I did that for about 20 years, as well as doing my therapy, right? Because when I got into doing my Vedic astrology, I had I've had lots of insight or lots of visitations within meditation. That's where things happen a lot for me. And on a meditation, when I'd become an astrologer, let's say 5 years in, no, less than that, about 2 years in, actually, I was doing readings, very successful. I could see I could make a really good business out of this. I believe I could have been quite famous as an astrologer, but I had this visitation that went back to the old man dying again. And he said, this time I will help my people more effectively. I won't just tell them what's going on in their lives. I'll help them to improve their lives. I'll help them to make changes. I'll help them to remove their karma and improve their karma. I'll help them to do it better. And so I realized I was him. I was his soul. And then I realized, okay, my purpose is not to just relive my Vedic astrology past life. It was actually to make a difference, to help people with their karmic cycles, but to help them clear stuff and make new choices and clear all the muddy water so they could be clearer in what they do. And that's then when I enlisted in a counseling course, found out that wasn't good enough. So then I enlisted in a hypnotherapy course and found, yeah, that's much better. I can go much deeper now. It's better than I did in NLP. And then another amazing thing happened, that I was in Sydney in a bookshop when I was a counsellor and hypnotherapist at that time, and a little brown book on the bookshelf just appeared to jump out at me. Was really nondescript. Anyway, I picked it up, and it was called Acknowledging What Is by Bert Hellinger. And as I opened the book and read the first page, I was absolutely, again, pulled in, totally drawn in. And, you know, I thought, wow, I've got to read this book. Took it home, read it. And I was astounded. It was all about family constellations. Never heard of it before. Didn't know anything about it. But I read it and thought, wow, I would love to do this. I'd love to experience this. But he was in Germany at that time, an old man. I was in Sydney, and I thought, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to, you know, do this. And so what happened then was I forgot about it. I just said, yeah, I would love to do it. So a couple of years later, I was with my husband in India. We were on a backpacking middle-age tour, if you like, but backpacking around India. And we ended up in a place near Mumbai in an ashram. And we were exhausted, tired, dirty, just wanted to rest. So we booked ourselves in, and the next day walking through the ashram, we came across a big sign in the middle of the ashram that said, family constellations, come and have a look, right? Can you believe this, right? In the middle of India. And so we went and had a look. Of course, we were both blown away. We joined a 3-day workshop where we did our own constellations. Those are the ones I was telling you about that affected our daughters. And then immediately after that, there was a full 15-day training. And so we enlisted on that and joined that and went on to that. And I became a family constellations practitioner. And then I was in my element, if you like, as a therapist, because now I could work energetically with people, and I could go into other realms and help them make those deep, deep karmic changes that I wanted to do. So I guess that's a lot of different stories that all weave in together, but that's kind of what I'm saying to you about, you have to be careful, I believe personally, not to just be a sponge for entities, aliens, you know, psychic phenomenon, because it's real. I know it's real. I know it happens. I know there are other realms. I know there's so much out there we don't know anything about. And I know that we're just little human beings on one level, but we're also spiritual, energetic beings as well. So I kind of am really aware that we can decide how we use that energy. And I've decided to use it in what I'm doing, which is helping people make those deep, deep, psychic, karmic, energetic changes that they need to be able to live fuller lives. That's it. And that's really part of their spiritual journey. And my spiritual journey is that too. So I guess that's kind of me in a nutshell, why I do what I do. And then from there, I developed something called EMI, Emotional Mind Integration, which is a super, super powerful way. You said earlier that you take a long time to take people into trance. People go into trance with me within 20 minutes of them walking through the door, let's say. So the trance part only takes about 5 minutes. And then we go super deep really quickly, and we sort stuff out using emotional mind integration and get all sorts of amazing changes really, really quickly. You know, I'm talking about, yes, psychic changes, energetic changes, but also PTSD, OCD, depression, anxiety, panic as well. really quickly. 3 sessions maximum is all they need. And they go into trance really quickly. And we go through the whole process I've designed, which takes them through a whole series of steps, which takes them from the symptom of whatever they've got straight to the core of whenever it came in, then through a healing pathway, then through integration out, all within a 60-minute session, right? And excellent, excellent results. So this is what I'm doing at the moment. I'm training other people, other practitioners, to do what I'm doing, because I'm in my 60s now, right? I'm not going to be here forever, and I'm not going to be able to do this work forever. So I really want to train others. I'm over the mental health system. I'm over the pharmaceuticals. I'm over traditional therapies. They're so outdated and so unhelpful, that I have this way of working, and so I'm kind of just putting that out. And so you asked me what I was doing this morning. Yep, I'm writing newsletters. I'm letting people know. I've put all my trainings online now, and that's taken a huge amount of energy to do that, but I've done it. And yes, it's exhausting, but I'm really happy to be doing what I'm doing, and yeah, happy to see the outcomes, happy to see practitioners turn their businesses around and become absolutely, amazing at what they do and have such satisfaction and get a good income as well, So all of that, yeah. That's kind of me in a nutshell, really.
It sounds like you have at least 2 or 3 large different types of therapy, from EMI to constellations to what else do you have?
Rapid core healing.
Rapid core healing,
And
EMI, and constellations are 3 different things.
Emotional mind integration, that's EMI. That works with the personal unconscious mind, like we do as clinical hypnotherapists, right? But it's a really quick, succinct way of going in deeply, coming out quickly for a whole range of issues, from weight loss, stop smoking, through to depression, anxiety, blockages to success. Why do I keep sabotaging myself? Or the whole stream from extreme ends, right? Works with all of those. Then I've got family constellations that works with generational issues, clearing away all that generational stuff that people hold. Then I've got emotional mind integration, family constellations, and then I've knitted them together into one complete modality, which is called rapid core healing. Now that same modality I'm now using, because I've just opened a clinic called Recovery from Sexual Abuse. New Dawn, Recovery from Sexual Abuse. And so now I'm getting lots and lots of people coming with sexual abuse history, trauma, who get completely recovered, not just okay, but actually turned around completely, no trauma at all, the memory right back there in the distance without any charge on it at all, within 3 sessions, right? So this is what I'm doing now, and it's like, it's magic, it's amazing. And this is where I'm choosing to put my energy, in my own private practice with people who come to me, and also giving people, practitioners all over the world, the tools and the knowledge and the skills to do what I do, and obviously make it their own, but get amazing results. I don't see why the public need to suffer depression their whole life long. It's just ridiculous, or panic attacks or anxiety. It's crazy, not necessary. That's my belief. Yeah.
So when you teach these people around the world, do you travel? Do you do it over Skype, or how do you do it?
Yeah, around the world. Well, because I've only just started it since March, I used to do all my training here in Brisbane before, face-to-face experiential. Now I've put everything online. So now it's available all around the world, in Brisbane, US, UK, online. So there are training packages online right now. Yeah.
So you sell the packages?
Yeah. Yeah. Rapidcorehealing.com. Rapidcorehealing.com. If you go there, you'll see everything I've got. So yes, and so I'm getting all these amazing results, and I guess, you know, when it comes to the paranormal, I absolutely know it's real. I've experienced it so many times, and I've only told you a couple of things there. Um, but I think as human beings and energetic beings, we can actually choose how we use that energy. You know, you can leave it as a party trick, or, you know, whoa, look what happened to me, or whatever, or look at what's out there. You can do that. But I've decided just to hone that in and just give it a purpose and use it productively to help people evolve, really. Clear stuff, evolve, move on, do whatever they need to do. Yeah.
So, okay, so we've taken an hour, and uh, I know your time is valuable, uh, and you've promoted your processes. Is there? I mean, we could end this in 4 minutes.
I'm happy to end this now, really. I probably don't have a lot more to add other than going over old stuff. So, I mean, that's why it was hard in the beginning to talk about therapy, because when you say therapy, it sounds like CBT or Gestalt or something, and the stuff I do is so much different to that, right? And it's kind of very much wrapped up with energy, with the paranormal, with what people carry with them and what people are attacked with as well. Yeah. Yeah.
So, the materials you have on your website, Rapid
Yeah,
Report,
rapidcorehealing.com. Yeah.
are they books? Are they videos? Are they
Okay.
combination?
The way the trainings are organized are, I also do online private sessions as well, for people who need private sessions. I use Zoom, and the trainings are set up in webinars. So Family Constellations has 11 webinars, each with Zoom, recorded Zoom, plus worksheets, plus exercises for the people to do, plus they get a copy of my book, Rapid Core Healing. And then there's one session within that training where it's online training, online. So we all meet as a group on set dates and go through processes online so that you have the experience of how to work with these modalities as well as all the theory and skills. And so that's all on my website. Yeah.
So, how many uh, how many sessions, or I don't know how to ask this, but how many sessions would you say you've had, or get-togethers? I mean, you said you started in March, right? March, April, May, June, July, August, September, 7 months
Mm.
or 6 months. Okay. How many sessions would you say you've had in 6 months? Where I don't know if should ask for individual sessions
Oh,
or
individual
group
session.
sessions, or
I'm not quite sure of the answer. So, okay, it's only just gone online. Only just, right?
okay, all
It's
right,
gone online in the last month, right?
right.
And so my courses are filling up right now. Hence, I'm writing newsletters. Hence, I'm letting people know, which is why I was busy before I spoke to you today. Just letting people know what it's here, it's online, it's ready. Okay, so that's the first thing. During that time from March to now, my business went completely online as well in terms of my private practice, my individual sessions. Now, I've done individual sessions online since 2005, but I also had a significant amount of face-to-face people turning up on my doorstep, and we do, you know, actual face-to-face sessions as well. But during COVID, it all had to go online because we weren't allowed to, we were in shutdown basically in Australia. So now I'm open again for face-to-face sessions, but I've always had a significant amount of online sessions as well, because people source me from all over the world because of the way I work, right? And of course, I'm in Brisbane, so it's obviously sensible to do online sessions. I do them via Zoom. Yeah.
So you have a professional version of Zoom that lasts beyond 40 minutes.
Yeah. It's not expensive. Yeah, you just pay for it once a year, and yeah, and I do at least half a dozen sessions a week on Zoom per year, just in practitioner, client practitioner sessions. I've got one at the moment I'm doing in Abu Dhabi, another one in New Zealand, another one in Tasmania, another one in US, two in US I'm doing at the moment. So yeah, it's fine. It works really well. Yeah, and I use emotional mind integration or family constellations or rapid core healing or whatever, and get this.
Whatever works.
Yeah, whatever works. That's the most important thing for me. It's like I hear the problem, and then, okay, how do we work with that problem? Okay, so I just utilize whatever is the most effective for that particular issue. Yeah.
So you pick it up psychically, what the problem is, and then you
Well,
decide which modality to use, or how does that work?
yes. Look, within the first 15 minutes of talking to them, asking them what's going on, what are they wanting to work with, and then asking a couple of questions around it, I will know how to work with them. Yes. Yeah.
Is there one of your three therapies that you tend to use more than the others? Or is it just equal?
Rapid core healing I use almost all the time because that's a combination of family constellations and EMI. And sometimes I just use EMI, sometimes I just use family constellations, but probably 70% of the time I'm using rapid core healing, which is the combination. Yeah. And the people who've learned these things from me, some people have just done family constellations and are running a whole private practice on family constellations alone and doing it well, right? Others have learnt from me EMI and have just decided, yep, that's all I'm doing. And they've run a whole practice on EMI and they've got their practices going brilliantly well too, right? And then some of the others who've decided to do rapid core healing have gone the next step and doing the rapid core healing and have got fantastic practices now, doing really well for themselves. So, yeah.
3 different ways.
Yeah, lots of ways of working that all work.
Okay, well, rapidcorehealing.com.
Yeah. And my books are on there too.
All right, well, it was a pleasure, and let me stop the recording before you do it on here.
Yeah.